Hey everyone, it's been a while since the last time I posted anything, which I apologize for. I'm sorry it's taken me this long to actually come back, but life's been throwing me a lot of curveballs, and it's kind of just one of those things. Had to pause something to focus on something else. But I'm back, and I'm ready to start grinding these videos out again for you guys. So yeah, hopefully you guys all enjoyed this one. And let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave a like if you liked it. And if you're new here, subscribe. It does mean a lot. And thank you all for sticking around. So this is going to be Boundless Necromancer. And yeah, hopefully you guys all enjoy. We started this story 7 years ago of a day of catastrophe. A bright light that many notice appears. That said light caused horrifying disasters, and those are called dungeon breaks. Because of that incident, a lot of people suffered, including the main character's parents. That's the day he lost everything in an instant, and then he made a pledge to himself while crying in tears of blood. The pledge he made is to become a hunter and rip apart all the monsters. We now move on to the present, and we see our main character at the cemetery. He is sitting down while thinking about how he got kicked out of the hunter's training center. He then makes fun of himself for thinking about becoming a hunter. Our main character's name is Han Sungyoon. He gets a flashback of when a guy told him that he is no longer able to come to the training center. Han is confused about why he's being kicked out, and the man explains that hunters get a couple of months to complete their training, and after that, they usually debut as a hunter. He tells Han that it's already been 7 years and he exceeds the period. He then says that Han's talent is way beyond trash, and if they let him stay there, their training center's reputation will become trash. The guy notices Han coming every single day to train, but calls it unfortunate. Other people question how stats cannot increase after 7 years of training. We come back to Han crushing a can in his hand while he thinks to himself about how his stats have not increased at all. He then overhears a kid talk about their dad passing away. The girl remembers a story, and it was about a monster rushing in while her daddy was saving people. The mother then asked the child what would she do if something was tough in her life. The kid says that she'll be strong and not to give up. Han, overhearing the kid's conversation with her mother, he decides to get up, walk over to them, and then bows to the mother and the child. He then runs off and questions how he endured this for the past 7 years. He knows that he can't stop now, and he won't give up. We see him knocking on the door of the guy who called his talent trash. And apparently he is the director, I guess? I don't know. The director opened the door and told Han to please go back. Han ignores him while also asking him to help Han take the hunter's exam one more time. The director gets pissed off and questions why Han never gets it. He thinks that Han came back for the money and tells him that he'll just refund him half of the membership fees. Han speaks up and tells the director that it isn't about the money. Moments after saying that, Han gets smacked by the director, and he tells Han that it's BS. Han goes flying back and lands on a pile of trash, but the director still wanted to rub salt into his wounds and calls him a failure. Han thinks about having a unique trait or even just being a little bit talented. Out of nowhere, Han then sees a holographic screen that says, "The Tower of Trials is praising Han for his iron will." Han doesn't know what is happening, but then he suddenly gets sucked into a puddle on the floor. He screams out for someone to save him just before he got completely sucked in. The director hears the scream of Han and comes out of the house yelling about Han causing a commotion, but then notices that Han isn't even there. He looks down to see Han's hat on the floor, and he picks it up while looking around. We switch back to Han and we see him underwater. He couldn't breathe, but a second later the water shoots him out. A pop-up shows in front of Han saying that all candidates from Earth have been selected. Han thinks of the Tower of Trials being another catastrophe. Another pop-up tells Han to select a difficulty for the trials. The higher the difficulty, the better rewards Han will get. Han doesn't really know what's going on, but his instincts are telling him to seize this opportunity. The system pop-ups tell Han they hope he obtains the results he wants at the end of his suffering. He will enter the first floor soon. Moments later, Han starts to get teleported to the first floor of the trials and he gets a second to prepare himself. He looks around and sees that he's in a desert. Luckily, the system gave Han a weapon to start off with. This floor's trial is survival, and the reward will be unique trait. This dude Han is just completely flabbergasted of this reward. He thinks about all the training he has done just for a unique trait, but this trial is going to give him one as a reward? He starts to smile, but thinks it is insane. Han starts to walk towards the sword, but suddenly the sand below him starts to rise up. The system tells Han that the trial has begun and the difficulty is hard. Standing in front of Han is a sand golem that is crazy big. He has 10 minutes to survive against the sand golem. Han starts to run away from the golem but sees a pop-up that tells him the penalty for failing this trial will be death. He doesn't know if he could really escape the sand golem by just running away. Unfortunately, the sand golem is faster because of its size. Han knows that it will be impossible to run away for 10 minutes, especially since he is in a desert. All he was given was a sword and nothing else, so it's either he dies trying to run away or dies trying to fight that golem. He is still running, but Han tries to find a way to win but has some doubts. He questions if he's just going to die a pathetic death. With confidence, he says no and starts to run in a different direction. Han has 7 years of theory in his brain, and he knows more than most hunters on the field. He knows that there isn't an answer if all he does is run away, so he must find another way to survive. In order to destroy the golem, Han would have to destroy the core. Most golems have cores in tough spots to reach, so he starts to run up a hill to give himself a better chance at breaking the core. Him and the golem go over the hill, but Han stops himself with his sword and the golem tumbles down the hill. Han then makes a jump onto the golem and proceeds to take a swing at the bright red core. Unfortunately, the strength behind the swing wasn't enough to break the core. The golem then grabs onto Han just before he made another attempt to break the core. Negative thoughts flood Han's mind, but he grips his sword and yells to shut up while throwing his sword at the core. He gets a pop-up telling him that the core has been destroyed with 7 minutes remaining. Han has now completed the first floor of the Tower of Trials. Hey, not gonna lie, this guy's kind of tough. Like, he has a brain, he's using his surrounding terrain, you know, it's really nice seeing some guy like that, so I appreciate it. Han falls to the ground after the golem starts to break apart. He gets up and he is in disbelief that he killed the sand golem. He barely managed to win against the golem, but the system congratulated him for doing so. As his rewards, he unlocks his unique trait, 1500 points, and a skill called Fast Recovery. Han can't believe it, since he's been doing this for 7 years and all he got out of it was shame and mockery. The system then reveals the unique trait Necromancy to Han. He believes that he can now become a hunter. He knows that he must survive for all of this to happen. His attention switches over to a red and black fog appearing where the sand golem died. He points his finger to the fog and a pop-up tells him his unique trait is activated. The pop-up asked if he would like to absorb the sand golem's spirit. Han questions the black fog being a part of his trait. He then says yes to absorbing the spirit, but all that black fog comes towards Han. It was him absorbing the spirit and his proficiency went up by 7%. The spirit goes inside of Han's chest, and he could hold up to 5 spirits at a time. Han can feel the spirit and wonders if he could absorb it. He then gets a pop-up saying that his stats permanently increased. His strength went up by 3 and his health went up by 2. Han feels his body filling up with energy and gets excited that his stats really went up. In the past, he couldn't raise his stats no matter what he did, but now he can. We get to see his necromancy trait. He could absorb the spirits of the dead and use them as he pleases. He could permanently increase his stats by using his spirits. Lastly, he could store a certain number of spirits, but that will increase with his rank. Han thinks that if he returns with that skill, he could also become a hunter. A portal opens up in front of Han and a pop-up tells him to move to his waiting room. Han walks into the portal and falls to the floor immediately on the other side. His injuries are way worse than he thought. Suddenly, a green light surrounds his body, and then he gets up and says that his injuries have been healed and questions if that is natural since the trial is over. He looks over to find a single bed and a big room, but he doesn't waste time and lays down on the bed. He doesn't know what he should be doing and questions if he could even escape the tower. He thinks about the reason why the tower called out to him. Out of nowhere, the system tells Han that he could use commands like the store, community, inventory, info, and trial. Han gives himself a good smack and says that he will focus on surviving for now. He then uses the command trial, but the system tells him to wait a whole day for his next trial. Han sits there on his bed, pondering about there being more trials. He then uses the community command and enters the hard difficulty chat. We get to see other people being confused about what's going on. Some people who weren't even hunters also got dragged into the Tower of Trials. Suddenly, an admin joins the community chat and disables the chat from being used. The admin says that they have important information to share. Han has questions about how to return, but pushes that off since he needs to memorize all the information. The first thing the admin talks about is how to use points. They explain the points as a currency, and the points are mainly used in shops. Anyone could use the community to give or receive points from others. Within the Tower of Trials, you can't get anything without points, and even water costs points in the Tower of Trials. Points can only be obtained through the trials. Han thinks that he has no choice but to get used to the rules of the tower. He will have to keep entering and clearing trials if he wants to survive. The admin then leaves the chat since that's all they had to share. Han thought he could be a hunter when he returned, but he won't get far with just a longsword. He opens this door and purchases a shield. He practices with both the sword and the shield. Han knows that everyone is starting at the same point since everyone lost their stats when they entered the tower. He thinks it should be easier to learn skills that they have learned before entering the tower. Han already thinks that he is behind everyone who had skills before they entered, so he must train to catch up. Some time has passed and Han is laying on the floor all sweaty. He then gets healed and thinks about how easy it is to train. Han's stomach starts to growl and he thinks about what he should do about his hunger. We then get a look at Han's inventory and we see the stuff that he's bought. Unfortunately, he only has 40 points left over. If he didn't get those bonus points, he would have never gotten a shield. There is now 17 minutes left before the next trial, which surprises Han because time passed a lot faster than he thought. Han says that the chat was confused as well, but they quieted down since the second trial is about to begin. Han thinks if he could survive again, but with confidence he says that he will survive. The time is ticking down and the trial is ready. Han agrees to enter the floor and takes a step through the portal. He has entered the second floor's trial while being on hard difficulty. Han is a little shocked since now he's in a forest this time around. A pop-up tells him that his mission is to assassinate an orc tribe leader within the given time limit. We see Han stand on the edge of a cliff while he looks down at a village of orcs. Han thinks that the system wants him to go down into the village swarming with orcs and to kill the orc leader. Thank you all for watching and hopefully you guys enjoyed. And if you guys want more, leave likes. I would say like, I don't know, 100 likes and I'll make another one. Let's try to go for that. But if not, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna go to a next project and yeah, we'll go from there.